Donald Trump does it again. Can his Republican rivals get him out of the spotlight? Plus, we're going to grade their campaign so far, the good, the bad, and the Trump. And then sports betting in New Jersey. A judge takes a hammer to Governor Christie's plans for now, but will it happen? And if so, how far should it go? And later, murdered on air. We've got the latest on the tragic killings in Virginia and our takes from inside the TV news business. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in once again tonight for Richard French. We're going to begin with a focus on the GOP candidates for president, and we've got the perfect panel to help with that tonight. So perfect, I'm going to introduce them right off the bat. O'Brien Murray is a Republican strategist, co-founder of the New York Meeting. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And Tom Doherty, also a Republican strategist, a partner at Mercury and a former advisor to New York Governor George Pataki. So first up, we're going to focus on the man of the summer in the presidential race, which means... And you know what, my apologies, because I came up with the idea for that comb-over report back in 2011 when Trump would blow air about running for office, but he never did. We got so much mileage out of that animation, we remade it when we went from regular to high-def format, but the joke doesn't feel quite as funny anymore. Trump's latest jawbreaker was a confrontation at a press conference yesterday with Univision's Jorge Ramos, an influential reporter and outspoken Trump critic.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision. Go ahead. Sit down, please. You weren't called.
Now, Ramos later returned to the press conference after Trump denied that he had him thrown out and engaged Ramos on some of his issues.
Why do you say that? Well, a lot of people think, no, excuse me. A lot of people, but a lot of people think that's not right. That if you come across, excuse me, yeah, just 1 second. No, I am answering.
He wasn't sweet about it, but he was actually responding to some of those issues. And Jorge Ramos is a key figure in the U.S. Spanish language community. But it's not like Trump's numbers among Hispanic voters have that much room to drop. He's got the lowest net favorables among Hispanics of any candidate, minus 51. Although, interestingly, Trump hasn't hurt other Republicans in this area. Everybody else polls between +5 and -7. Trump's own numbers keep going up every time he pulls a stunt like this one. He's now got a 2-to-1 lead over Jeb Bush in the latest national poll. So here's the Trump stuff grates me. It does. Although, when I was watching the press conference, I was like, this is entertaining. And there have been times where I've wanted to do that to people who did the same thing at a press conference. Grade the Jorge Ramos confrontation. Good television, good theater, good camp, good politics.
Trump, A for Trump, F for Ramos.
Really?
Simple as that. If he was in the West Wing, he would have been thrown out by Secret Service. You don't have an opportunity to stand up and ask the question and continue to speak when you're not called upon when you're in a press pool like that.
That's not true.
At some point you get cut off.
That applies, OB, to the President of the United States and no one else.
But at some point when you're in an audience...
And I want you to speak.
Go ahead.
That's one of the pet peeves that I have as a journalist, that government officials are now trying to control the media by selecting who's going to ask the question.
But when there's 20 people in an audience or more, 10 or more, whatever you want to call it, at what point do you decide you're going to call on you or Tom or Andrew?
Well, here's what happens. I'm going to take those 5 questions from journalists that I know are in my pocket, and I'm going to ignore those 5 over there.
And that might very well have been the case last night.
Oh, I know it's the case.
Also, there wasn't a question at first from Ramos. There was a statement. He was no longer reporting.
And that's wrong.
He was protesting.
That's wrong.
You protest, you get thrown out.
But this is just the latest flare-up. And my 2 Republican strategists on the panel tonight. Is Donald Trump, I assume you'd like Donald Trump out of this race? I assume you'd like Donald Trump out of this race. Tom?
I don't want him out of the race. I'll make that clear. Tom probably wants to throw the bug at me.
Trump's not helping your party, is he?
I don't think Trump's hurting my party. I think that Trump is a brand unto himself. He is not viewed as, quote unquote, an everyday Republican. I mean, history will show us that he's not an everyday Republican. There are a lot of angry people in this country. So I'm going to take myself out of my sort of consultant's world here right now, because I still think that Jeb Bush will be the nominee and that will be good for my party. But he is talking about a lot of stuff that has a lot of people, on a lot of, not just Republicans, but Democrats and independent voters as well, just angry about a system that they feel is rigged, and they finally feel like there's somebody who's sort of saying what's on their mind, right or wrong. Now, look, I don't think that you can yell about immigration and not have a solid immigration plan. That's why we're in the mess we're in today. But the idea that Trump is going away anytime soon, he is not.
No, I don't think he is going away, but it wouldn't be better for the party if he wasn't.
You know what? I
hogging
think,
the spotlight?
and I'll tell you why I don't think it is that I think that at the end, when Jeb Bush becomes the nominee, or John Kasich becomes a nominee, or God, if a George Pataki, who you saw has good numbers with Hispanic voters, a more moderate, reasonable elected Republican, right? They are going to look more moderate to the public going forward. They're going to put forth ideas and plans that I think will sell to independent voters, and that helps us at the end of the day.
Tom and I met in '94 during the Pataki race. Okay, at that time you had Contract with America, you had a wave election, everybody was up in arms, and they fell behind Contract with America and got through it. Yeah. I was in upstate New York in 2009 for a guy named Doug Hoffman, the Conservative Party candidate, running against a Republican and a Democrat. The Republican quit by the end of the race at that point. When we were up there in upstate New York, the northern reaches, we got calls by the hundreds from people saying, I want to come volunteer on this race. It was the first Tea Party, frankly, motivation of coming out and working on an election since that April timeframe. After that race, they went to work for Scott Brown, then they went down for Marco Rubio. I think right now Trump is motivating people to get involved that may not normally be involved, which could be to his detriment in Iowa and the early primary states if they don't show up to vote. But whoever the nominee is, if they can make sure not to disenfranchise these people, I think that could be an incredible opportunity for Republicans in a number of these states.
Yeah, you know where I disagree with that is that this goes back to, the Obama election that, Mitt Romney was going to hold back this tide of social conservatives, et cetera. Look, if you didn't come out and vote and you didn't like Obama because Mitt Romney was on the ticket, I just don't buy into that. I think these are voters, these are angry voters. These are voters who I think right now are hurting somebody like a Ted Cruz. I think they tend to be really kind of Tea Party right. And so I think one of two things will happen. Trump will stay where he is. He will go into a place like Iowa. He will go into a place like New Hampshire, and he will do very, very well. And the only answer is when the field goes from 17 or 16 or whatever it is that they'll coalesce around a Jeb Bush or a John Kasich, because when you add up those votes, they outweigh the Trump vote.
I agree with the assessment that's just been articulated as far as Trump. As I've been saying, as you know all along, I think he's going to be very successful. I want to go back to this incident, and I didn't mean to cut you off, OB.
The Ramos interview?
Yes. Because from my point of view, it was a publicity stunt from each of the two characters.
Yeah.
It wasn't involved together. Every serious reporter knows that you can interrupt a press conference. As a rule of thumb, Mr. Trump, and I agree with, he was playing to his base. I believe that's that goes over very well with his base, with what he did. He was putting a Latino reporter, or certainly, let's not say Latino, he was putting a journalist in their place. Now, the last time I checked, and I'm starting to worry a little bit about my friend Donald Trump, because I don't know, knowing him the way that I do, he's not sounding like the same guy. It sounds like he's playing into this. The only person I know, certainly your boss didn't do this, George Pataki. I've interviewed Pataki a number of times on topics where he knew that I was coming after him. And he sat there and took every single question. I've never seen Governor Pataki say, I'm going to answer these 3 questions. Right. Giuliani was famous for that.
So what are you saying, that you think Trump's buying into it?
No, what I'm trying to say is, Trump is a very good candidate, but he's not the president yet. And the last time I checked, they try and control the environment, the politicians. They're looking for every edge that they can get. And so they want to call on the questions, so you stack the deck.
Right.
You call, some questions are planted. I know the question knows that campaigns will sometimes, it's unethical.
Or you know what somebody's going to ask.
Right, or you know what they're going to ask.
But let's look at this election too right now. In the Republican primary, Univision is not really a player. The voters in the Republican primaries
not going to be if Trump keeps at it.
No, they're older and they're whiter. That is who you have to play to for your messaging points. To some extent, the Univision reporter is the kind of thing we run into campaigns at times in a primary situation like this when they're not from your region and not from your area, and they're going to play it in Peoria. We need to make sure your people get the message.
I got 30 seconds, Tom.
But that hurts us long term.
Yes,
because Univision, as I've said for a very long time, that is the future of the Republican Party, right? The future is that we need brown voters to come look at us seriously. That's why Jeb Bush, George Pataki, Kasich, et cetera, they have reasonable plans to solve immigration problem. They recognize it's a problem. Donald Trump can't be down 50 points with Hispanics. We will get crushed in those elections.
All right, up next on RFL, breaking news. According to scattered and unconfirmed sources, Donald Trump is not the only Republican running for president. He's just the one using up all the oxygen. So which of the other Republicans have been laying eggs in their campaign so far, and which ones have defied expectations? We dare to go beyond the Trump next.